So this stream was super long. It was like, I think just recording it was like 23 minutes, which is a long time. It's also hard because like I wake up and I'm like, I want to go back to sleep, but then I'll feel like, oh, if I don't, I'm gonna miss this opportunity. And so, okay. So I've been praying for celebrities that I think need my help. And in this one, there was this mysterious sword master. And I don't think I got to this point, but he eventually unsheathed this sword, and it was like twice as long, and it had these like red triangles that reminded me of dragon teeth. And so dragon has been like a reoccurring theme because I really like dragons. So mysterious small sword master. So November 29th, 2024. Mysterious sword master and this girl. I wrote, now remember, I've been praying for certain celebrities because I believe they're having a hard time being trapped, and since I'm very good at spiritual warfare, I wanted to help. Normally it's bad to like brag, and I try not to, but I'm trying to get people's gears going that like you can be good at this stuff. You just need to remember it's about prayer. It's not about, there's a lot of battles, especially with narcissistic people. You don't beat narcissistic people by arguing. You beat them by determinedly showing them philosophical consistency, especially with the Bible, because it's also righteous. It's self-defined righteousness created by God's will. And so when you argue that, the narcissist gets quiet, and that narcissism is actually a kind of prophetic spiritual ore that can be turned into like something awesome. Okay. I'm good at spiritual warfare. I wanted to help. I don't think there's a lot of Christianity in Hollywood and a lot of temptation and do what we want attitude. I think the sword master is me, or Jesus and me. I think it was me. I think it's how they're seeing me. So they don't know Jesus, and I'm entering their kind of dream space, and I'm not trying to. What I do is I pray for them before I go to bed. I told God I wanted this to happen more, and God said, make a list, kneel before you go to bed and pray about it. And that's important because that's different than me just laying in bed and praying as I fall asleep. By kneeling, I'm like determinedly showing heaven that I want to be engaged, and then I'm finishing my prayer list in an engaged, active, taking it seriously sort of way. And then heaven reacts by making my prayers come into play in reality, and sometimes this means I get to dream share, which is great because I like the supernatural, and God tends to do supernatural things that have like a flair about me. I have a theory that all the prophets in the Bible, like Moses, Joshua, all the big players, Moses, Joshua, Jesus, Joseph, their stories always play out in a way that complements their personality. Like Moses wanted power. That's why he killed the slave master. But it wasn't the right way to do it, because eventually, like, first of all, Moses is human. He could just die by being stabbed in the back. And second, it wasn't the way God wanted it. He didn't want to just go around murdering people with bad attitudes. And so God gave him this staff of authority, but it was also like a shepherd's staff. And so he did super miracles with that. So Moses got what he wanted. It was just so outlandish, he didn't ever think something like that was going to happen. So in the same way, like, I didn't think I'd be able to do all this supernatural ministry or create mechanics for it, more importantly, and yet here I am. So I want to say this because I want you to do the prayer, not try to do the superpowered event. The superpowered event, like Jesus walking on water, wasn't Jesus decided to walk on water. God kept him back and then needed to bring him back with his apostles. And so God had him walk on water. So as we work with heaven, that's where we'll see the most supernatural events, the most charismatic events. This is how your dreams prosper. You check in with heaven and you work with heaven, and be careful about taking credit from God. Anyways, it's a learning process, so be wise in all things and check in with God. All right. So I think it's me. I think it's how they're seeing me, and this is important because it means my prayers are turning into action. And even better, they're turning into some sort of story, fable, fantasy-like adventure story, which I love and which encourages me to continue a lot hardcore-like. So I was in this like newish neighborhood. It looked kind of like fresh, like new. Like all the buildings were kind of new, but it was like a neighborhood. Like it used to be in the hood, and it seems like I think there was a guy, he had respect from the black community. And then back to me, I see there's a new wife and she's Japanese, but I'm thinking this doesn't mean she's Japanese, because my potential wife, the one God has said I'm going to walk and talk with, doesn't look Japanese. Maybe there's a little bit, but I think this is like the sword master is Japanese, because they're kind of known for that. And I also like the Japanese a lot. I like the culture and the literature and everything about it. And so she's a part of this now. And so she's part of the same culture of sword mastery. And she was kind of in the back of the kitchen. So I think she's like also a hidden secret. So I really think that's my potential wife. Like when you think of Japanese, you think of like karate, you think about martial arts, you think about, martial arts, so like spiritual martial arts. I wrote, so she's significantly, the moment we're married, she'll get an even share of all my powers, so she's significantly involved too. Sword master culture. I saw my effect. Something I was working with heaven is I'm not about foundations. So when you think foundations, you think a square, you think something that you build a house on. But when I think foundations, I want cubes. I want something a little more sci-fi. I want something like solid, like a strong resource. And I think heaven also kind of likes the Minecraft thought of it, which I'm not going for. But anyway, seeing cubes, which are sturdy and heavy. So I'm seeing the people that I was praying for before I went to sleep, which is pretty cool. I saw a video clip of 2 celebrities and thought they could use my help. They were suffering and weak because they didn't know God's love or mercy or ultimate fighting power. So like I said before, we don't have a mental health problem in the United States. We have a spiritual health problem, spiritual power problem. And I don't think these 2 know how to use God's spiritual power and bring it into their life and bring peace and like push back the obnoxious parts of reality and bring forth fruition. So if you're like a celebrity and you want to do music, you should be praying for your music to go well, to be met with good producers and people who make good music videos, not people who bully you and have obnoxious egos. There was a third girl there, a white girl, who said she wanted to be trained in the way of spiritual martial arts. She said she knew a little, and to her credit, she did, because I saw her doing some of the form. But I didn't think she was relying on God just yet, like working within his ways of life. So she said that, she's like, I can do it. And she like tried to throw a kick, but she couldn't see me because I was invisible. And so then she like fell over. And I think that was God kind of being like, you have more to learn. Was she wearing 80s clothes? Reminded me of Joan of Arc a little bit from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So more about the producer. Okay, so all of a sudden there's this like producer. He was kind of evil without being evil. So I don't think he was evil. He was just antagonistic, like spiritually antagonistic. But he had a might of character, like a level 3 or 5. And he wanted a racetrack. He really wanted a racetrack, but there wasn't a place for him to race. And someone I knew said, we can race under Old Town. I've been thinking, sorry, the dog's barking at the trash man. We could race in Old Town. And that was interesting. So I don't know if he's trying to make a movie about racing I've been thinking about maybe North Korea could jumpstart their economy by introducing like the sort of racing you saw in Fast and Furious 3, Tokyo Drift, like that sort of thing. I don't know. And then I wrote, yeah, so maybe multiple lines of information I need to dissect coming at me, because sometimes I'll get information about what's going to happen the upcoming week, what's happening with me now spiritually, and what's happening in my spiritual atmosphere that I may or may not have to deal with. And I'm getting better at this, but the racing one, I don't know. Maybe it'll make sense to someone listening, whoever this producer is. Then there was this black man that was impressed with himself because he helped Trump get some stuff passed. He wanted to be cool in the neighborhood. He wanted people to love and respect him. He wanted satiation of charisma to be known, favored, and belovedly renowned. So I see this happening in, and I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to show you where the wealth is, but I see this happening kind of in black culture. There's this charismatic suction, but you need to work with heaven. The same thing happened with the hippies in the 60s. The hippies wanted love and peace and not war, and eventually they couldn't understand why it wasn't working in the end. It's because you need Christ. And we're seeing a lot of this with black culture. Like, they have an affinity for power, for charisma, for, I don't want to say sports, but like, there's this mental muscle, there's this aptitude for attitude. So that might just be like a second type of personality, but you need to be possessed by the Holy Spirit. To do that, you have to believe in Jesus, that he died for you as the perfect, as a human who has never sinned, and that appeased God. And now you believe in Jesus, died for your sins, you get possessed by the Holy Spirit, you get filled with power. This power lets you do things, and then we live like God. We move away from popular culture of nonstop sex. God, prostitution is popular now, and what else is popular? It's not bad to want your dreams and want to be wealthy, but we just have to be careful we don't get overly obsessed with things that are going to pass away, because like the wealth you bring to heaven will be with you forever. So your skills and your friends, and then the good works give you more, your musical talents. Anyways, yeah. So then there was these kids that showed up and they wanted to fight. And I didn't want them to die, but there's this fight going on. So the sword master, which I think is my mysterious fighting spirit, kept the sheath on the sword and kept hitting them in the chest. But they're in the corner of this room, like a film set, and it was like green, like a green room. It was a film set, and they tried to hide behind this plant. But the young samurai, who I think is the proactive version of myself, kept hitting him in the sword that was sheathed. So I was just like, whack, and they tried to talk, and I was like, whack, and they tried to talk, and I was like, whack. I was like, no, you're not going to open your mouth and try to convince me you're doing something that you're not. You get out of here, whack. And the reason I didn't want to kill them is I don't think they were demons. I think they were people practicing magic to get in the headspace of these actors. I could definitely feel it reaching out. So they wanted the power of Jesus, not the kids. Either the producer, I think the producer, or maybe the actress, or no, maybe it was the first actress. Okay. And I apologize if I'm being a little confusing. I'm trying to kind of hide their names for now. Because once I start doing more miracles, I don't think it's fair that other people be dragged into the spotlight, but at the same time, I feel more of an allegiance for God and his glory than I do people in the spotlight of God healing them. Like, if people see that I heal that you're blind, I don't know how much responsibility I have to keep your name a secret. But that's something to maybe consider at a later date. Even, let's see, Jesus' love and power, they're reaching out. So, like, they wanted the power of Jesus, they were reaching for me, but what they really wanted was Jesus' love and power, like the wealth, that spring of life. Remember this, even though you'll do many things for God, don't give people your love when they want God's. Oh yeah, so for people who try to like do what I'm doing, there's gonna be a lot of times people reach for your love and you want to give them Jesus's love, even though it'll feel really good to like be the hero and like give in this wealth of love. And you can be like, hey, just, I love you, but what you're reaching for is Jesus. And you have to accept that responsibility because you're not perfectly powerful. Eventually you'll die, eventually you'll get hurt. You can't watch over them at every moment, but if they turn to Jesus, they can pray. They can, pray for protection in the future. They can develop a good relationship with Jesus and say like, oh, things are hurting, and then they'll call Jesus, not you, and Jesus is better at it than you. But by all means, like, develop friendships, develop kinships. I love my friends, and that's hard for a lot of people because, like, I have a lot of friends that I love in a kinship way, not in a romantic way, and if you didn't grow up Christian, that looks really weird. Like, I have a friend at work, and everyone asks us if we're dating, and I'm like, no, we're not. We're not dating, we're just friends. I like to talk, and she likes to listen, and I like to talk about my books, and she likes to listen about my books, so I talk a lot because I get bored at work. Yeah, also, you can fail, and God doesn't ever fail. Okay, so what else? I was in this executive business owner's house. I started telling myself information. I have this problem with porn that turned out to be a problem with greed and stealing that I got from a moment as a child. Like, there was an intense moment with one of my parents, G-rated, but it stuck with me because of my discernment and the injustice of it. And it made a small part of me greedy and another part willing to steal, like real small amount. And it was buried under the lot of tasks I had to get through and solve to become the world's greatest minister / King Charming. Okay, so what's interesting is in this part of the dream I'm recording, it sounds like I'm talking in tongues, but in English, like I'm giving revelation to myself, which was very awesome and weird. And at the end of it, I was speaking, like God was speaking through me. And so just stay with me. But, supernatural stuff is definitely peculiar sometimes. I'm listening to myself talk in tongues, which is coming through with a revelation. It's saying I like to understand people's occupational conditions and how to interact with that meaningfully and in uplifting, creative, and mechanical ways that also move in ways that are divine and supernaturally awesome. I'm also hearing myself say, I speak the language of joy and play. They say playfulness is the first language. Like kids playing with each other and learning to interact. I seek heavenly themed moments that live between joy and play because they wash away hate. If you use joy and play correctly, which is to say, use it respectfully, this lets people improve their lives, which lets people master new skills, which reinforces everything. I use a skill correctly. This is undeniable and in a way undefeatable. So they do it again and again and again. So what I'm trying to articulate here is if I can teach people to use the powers of Christ, am I shaking the camera a bunch? Repeatedly, it self-reinforces. So if you become good at painting, you're like, oh, and then you become better at painting. You're like, oh, and then you have paintings that you've done that get better and better. So you now have generated wealth, and that is reaffirming in a concrete way that helps push you towards doing more. So do it again and again and again, and then the source of the skill they understand is Jesus. So I point out how that's Jesus. It's even better. It flatters itself. It becomes majestic and gives itself more oomph because heaven has unlimited power for us to call upon. So I create a learning block attitude. It's so weird to hear myself talk about myself in third person, which is, I think, what I was saying in my dream record. When I was recording what I was dreaming, which turned into me giving a revelation. So I was getting so like God gave me a personal moment where I was revealing about myself, and then God started speaking through me. So it was very intimate between God, heaven, and me. So I created a circular system. So I'm explaining what I do through this revelation. So I created a circular system that self-establishes, which makes you furthermore relatable. So the system helps make you relatable to other people's delightfulness, other people's joy. Because you can't relate to people if you believe you are incompetent or useless or incompetent and worthless. Because if you're self-sacrificing and self-demoting or self-sabotaging, you'll also self-sabotage your connections to other people, which makes deep, meaningful relationships hard to achieve because the other person has to do the heavy lifting because you've got bad habits. Okay, so here's where God is talking through me. So Josh helps you redesign your communication structure, and communication is how I made heaven and earth. So then, yes, it's, this is so weird. It's the young black girl from Wicked. I don't remember her name, I'm sorry. And Josh is concerned about everything, so he hasn't mastered everything yet. But he's working on it, and he's working on it diligently. And I love him for it. So that's the end of what I wanted to communicate, and he's going to take back over. So that was really cool. So I saw a scene where Ariana Grande, and I don't remember the other girl's name from Wicked. I could look it up, but it's already past my bedtime, and I still have to upload these. Their faces looked like they were stuck in a metaphysical warfare. Something looked off. They were being overloaded with supernatural information that wasn't theirs. And it had taught them some bad things about life. And with added pressures of Hollywood and friends that don't follow Christ, it can push you in strange directions that help you lose your love and not get much back in return very quickly. So I decided to start praying for them so they would have awesome lives, because either God's going to do something, give them awesome lives, or nothing happens at all and there's no harm. Because I'm not trying to push anything I believe on them. I'm trying to allow heaven to push what it wants and work in its magnificent way to help, because that's what I want to do. I want to help. So I pray, because if you could work in miracles, which is like magic, but exponentially better, why would you not do it all the time? Why would you do anything else? Which I still do art and write books, so it's not like I do it all the time. So I think the person in charge of the Wicked movie was very good at applying pressure, but that's not always a great thing. He needs and wants a challenge, so he's over-pressuring the movie process, and that happens a lot. People have gifts like talking, and they'll talk and talk and talk and talk, or preaching, and they'll preach and preach and preach. And it's like, dude, we're at the dinner table, chill out. And I think that's what's going on for this guy. He has such a strong soul. He's in need of something big, a big conquest, something to apply this pressure to, and instead these small hamster type moments, it doesn't need a lot of pressure. It's getting the pressure and it's crushing the people. So I've started praying for him too. He needs a challenge. He needs to work with heaven to get something worthy of his efforts and strength. I feel I feel like my potential wife, so we're changing tracks, had a great time at her recent big project. And then I said, I hope we're married soon. I miss her so much, which is weird to say because we haven't met in person, but we've met spiritually a lot, communicated a lot through heaven's magnificence. And yeah, there's been a time where I heard her say I love you, and I've told God to tell her I love her too. and other communicative moments. We'll see. But yeah, I pray that God tells her a lot, because I can't think at her, I can't feel at her, I can't try to genesis these feelings at her. If I want to communicate with someone, I say, God, tell this person. God, tell, always to God, not to the angels, not to, we work directly to God. God, will you please tell her? God, will you please do this? And then God can also correct me. I'm not going to do this. Let's operate this way. I'm not going to do that. Be patient over here. But like a lot of times, like he will tell her stuff. And sometimes I'm doing it too much, and he's like, you know, relax. There's only so many hours in the day that she's free for me to talk to her. She has things she has to do. And then like also God's trying to work with her on things too. So there's like priorities. So like, you know, and also relax. Like you don't need to worry. You don't need to overfeed someone with love. Like the relationship should be built to like, relax. This is also a supernatural event. The goal is to get you guys together in person so you can live life in person. Okay. So the producer must have spiritual significance, but I feel like he's holding up in some sort of oiled concrete dome. And this was interesting because I kept trying to think about him, and then I would notice I was thinking about something, but I couldn't remember what I was thinking about. And then I was like, what was I thinking about? Someone's messing with my mind. And I saw this like dome with a sheen of oil, so it was like slippery, and it was like a nuclear dome, like a protective area. It was made out of concrete, like all the way down to the center where he's hiding. And I was like, oh, all right, we're gonna pray about this. I've done this before. I know what I'm missing. I'll focus on that. So I prayed a bunch about the guy. Like, you don't get to use witchcraft to hide from Jesus. You don't have to accept Jesus, but there's gonna be a conversation. And then back to the racetrack. The girl that was with me had an idea. If we shrink ourselves down, we could use a kid's racetrack. And we thought that was a great idea, and the producer liked it too. He's intense, but he doesn't know Jesus. He maybe uses witchcraft or a group of witchcraft in Hollywood, because I definitely felt a connection to a group of mysterious people, like mystical people that were trying to intervene for him, or he was like part of them, and they all had like this charismatic thing going together. The girl identifies as a man and brought me there as an authority to be used against the pressures and the authorities of the universe, but I knew that was a falsehood. I knew she was telling a fiction because she wanted to be popular with the main actress girl from Wicked. Back to the race and the jets. But if he moves forward, oh yeah, because he wanted like the Blue Angels, like he didn't just want races, he wanted like jets flying over. But if he moves forward my way, that is with God, he'll get what he wants quickly and easily without much moving around. So that was cool too. And that was my super long dream. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully I didn't ruin people's lives. I'll be praying to God that I should leave this video up, because it makes me nervous to call people out. But if they can be healed and more people can know Jesus because of this event, hopefully they're okay with it. We'll see what happens. Oh yeah, wait, I wrote a Bible verse to kind of anchor this. Where was it? Matthew 17:20. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And then it says the mustard seed is significant because it's the smallest seed in the Middle East. It can grow into a huge tree, and it can grow very quickly if planted in fertile soil, watered with the word of God, and kept in the sunshine, like the Son of God shine. So I thought that was cute. I'm worried my phone's not gonna be able to save this. I love you guys. Pray for the reality you want. Talk to God a lot. Wisdom in all things.